Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's a werewolf, not a swearwolf. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Pretty good.
I love that movie so much.
So what we do in the shadows is a New Zealand sort of...
There it is. I was wondering what the connection was.
Mockumentary about vampires and werewolves who are not swearwolves because they try and keep themselves calm.
I think my third favorite mockumentary of all time, and that's saying something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're here to talk US under-20s versus New Zealand under-20s in the U20 World Cup round of 16. It finished 6-0 this morning. It kicked off 7 a.m. US Eastern Time. So we didn't watch this live.
We did not.
We did not. But we saw the results and we thought, that sounds like an exciting game. Mm-hmm. Went back and watched it. It was not so fun to watch. The goals were fun to watch, but honestly, I would not recommend watching the full 90 minutes of this.
No, I definitely wouldn't. And especially because, the first goal is in, the 32nd thereabouts, and the next one doesn't come until double that, in the 64th.
Yeah.
So the goals are very spread out. And
some nice goals, and we'll get into the goals. So this is almost like you're better off maybe just watching the highlights and listening to this show.
Yeah, there you go. But I think... really, in retrospect, we should have noticed when the goals came and realized that it was going to be a disjointed performance. Mm-hmm. Because if it's a blowout 6-0 and the goals are kind of regularly spaced, it implies that basically the one team has been really going at them. They've figured out a way to break down their opponent, and they've done so successfully. When it's like this, it was 32, 64, 65, 76, and then it kind of goes from there. That speaks more so to...
those Hurley's lottery numbers?
Yes, something like that. It speaks more so to... maybe a one goal, then the team sits back, invites that pressure, they get a second, the other team maybe gives up a little bit, then the floodgates open.
So, there was the last three goals, I want to say, are a little bit of New Zealand just not even manning the floodgates, just let them open and kind of half-heartedly wave the water through.
Yeah, I think so. To the extent that, Austin Trusty's goal, the fifth goal, you can see one player just pointing at him like, hey, he's wide open as he gets set to hit the ball.
Yeah, and he's within a couple of yards of him at some point. Yeah. So, not great from New Zealand.
Not ideal.
So before we get into the goal, should we talk US lineup? Because you talked to Will Parchment yesterday, really great show as always. And he had the same ideas about what Tab Ramos might do, and they all revolved around sticking with that 4-3-3 and how you replace Derek Jones at the base of that midfield without taking too many defenders out of the back four, especially Eric Palmer-Brown, right? In the end, what Tab Ramos did is he brought in Jeremy Ebobisse and went 4-4-2. Yep. Good old-fashioned 4-4-2.
Yes. Which I think speaks to Tab Ramos anticipated that it would be a very direct game, and maybe that New Zealand...
He made it a direct game.
Yeah, but also that maybe that New Zealand wouldn't be so aggressive. Like, they maybe would press a little bit, but they wouldn't be so, we're coming at you, we're going to try to flood the midfield, we're going to try to get a bunch of shots. Yeah. I think he saw, I can probably play two in the middle, put two up top, and it's going to cause problems and keep them kind of nullified going through the middle.
And even if New Zealand do press, which they did a little bit, right? They tried to put the US defenders under pressure. We can just go long and aim for Ebobisse and Sargent, which is kind of what they did, and it was kind of successful, but not successful enough to make it an entertaining game.
Yeah, well, I would also say that that's never really going to be that entertaining. If it's always a ball hit 40 or 50 yards to a player who then tries to chest it and settle it and then have somebody run off of him, it's not that exciting of a game plan ever.
Fair. It harnessed the natural energy of Tyler Adams and Eric Williamson in midfield. I think they might be the answer to any future US energy problems. We don't need nuclear power, we don't need solar, we don't need wind, we don't need geothermal. We can just have Tyler Adams and Eric Williamson run around.
I don't think
they
that's
covered
accurate.
some ground. No?
I don't think so.
Well, it worked in this game.
No, that's good enough then. That's all we need. But you're right, it did, and it was. That the two of them did a really good job of, again, shutting down the kind of passing options for New Zealand, but also being very physical, winning those 50-50 balls, winning the secondary balls off those.
Neither of them are big guys in the way that Derek Jones is. You know that you're in for a challenge when he's running at you. But Tyler Adams and Eric Williamson both seem stronger than they look.
I think they know how to use their size to their advantage in the sense that, they might not be the biggest, but they know how to kind of hip check, throw a little butt check in there, knock the player off the ball.
Game smarts, right? Yeah. It's game smarts. It's experience.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think they were probably two of the brightest performers for the USA overall.
Yeah.
Because, again, if you look at, every single goal of the 6 goals scored by a different goal scorer, nobody got multiple assists, although Nate Kruger, who's scouting Brooks Lennon, might disagree a little bit. We did get a report from him about the 20-year-old American winger.
What's he say?
He says Brooks looked his usual self in the recent U20 match against New Zealand, bending balls into the box from the wing and streaking up and down the sideline, working hard and tracking back on defense.
Agree so far?
He got a goal and an assist, and it would have been 2 assists if Glad had gotten credit for the opener. Instead, it went to Sargent. Nate adds that he wishes Lennon would stay with RSL as they desperately need him, but Nate both fears and hopes he will be bound for bigger and brighter things.
So he's not... this is off topic a little bit. Brooks Lennon is not getting into that Liverpool starting 11.
I would guess not.
But he's like one of the best RSL players when I've seen them play. So to me, it makes sense for him to stay another year rather than go and play in Premier League 2.
I think he might not have as much to say about that as maybe RSL will have.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with him. But for the purposes of this tournament, he looks pretty good. And that is correct. That he got the goal, he got the assist. And if Justin Glad had gotten the credit for the first goal, which he shot, but it took a deflection off of Josh Sargent. Yeah. So then, in that situation, Justin Glad gets the assist, not Brooks Lennon.
So should we talk about this opening goal? Because the thing that I liked about it was that it looked like a designed play. It went wrong, but it looked like a designed play at least. So I'm always looking for any evidence that the US team has a set-piece idea and tries to execute it.
Yeah.
Because Brooks Lennon drives it in low, looking for, I think, Jeremy Obobase. It goes just behind him. Glad picks it up. And then Glad just flicks a switch and starts flicking the ball up and doing some skills that you don't expect from a centre-back playing right-back.
Yeah, I mean, he did really well to first get to the ball because you said it's behind Obobase, so he reacts to it. It goes up in the air. I think he settles it, gets the turn, gets the shot off. All very good things, but it does on the very last review we get of it about 10 minutes after the goal goes in. You can see that it goes off of, I think, Josh Sargent's right knee, maybe his left knee.
And the tell is how Sargent celebrates, right? He celebrates like he's just scored.
For a minute, to his credit, he definitely puts his hand up and is like, yeah, I did it. And then when everybody goes to hug Justin Glad, you don't see him be like, no, it was me. You see him like, yay, team.
Because there is a more selfish player who would start making sure everybody knows that you got the last touch.
Yeah, he'd run to the corner flag and do the jump and point at the back of his jersey.
Push Justin Glad out of the way.
It's not what it's not Josh Sargent's way.
All right, the second goal of the game comes from Jeremy Obobase, and it's the goal of the game. Austin Trusty might disagree, but this is probably the goal that everyone will remember from this game. It's also, 64th minute, as you said, but this is where New Zealand break in half.
It is. I'm actually going to give it to Austin Trusty, but we can have that debate in a second.
All right.
But yeah, it comes from, I think it's a foul on Eric Palmer-Brown. He gets kind of a slap to the face and he goes down. When the New Zealand player says he dove, he did not dive. He was slapped in the face and shoved to the ground.
Yep.
From that free kick, it's booted long, shock of all shocks. It goes to Josh Sargent, who wins the header and kind of flicks it laterally to Obobase, who takes 4 touches and scores.
I want to say deliberately as well. It seems to me Sargent was very much knew exactly what he was doing with that ball to land it into the path of Obobase.
Yeah. I mean, into the path of Obobase in the sense that it goes behind him, so he has to settle with the chest, take a touch, take another touch, and then shoot, right? That's 4, I believe?
Yeah. And doesn't he, with his back to goal, he sort of fakes one way, defender buys it, and then he goes the other way just to open up enough space to touch and then hit it. Absolutely hit it for that goal.
And I'm wrong. It wasn't a chest. That's what was really impressive about the goal, is that it starts with the ball coming out of the air and he kills it dead with his left foot.
Yes, it's that cushioned touch, right? That almost brings it in towards you. It's like he's going to swallow it with his feet.
Yep. And I think that's why it sucks in the defender, but then I think they don't want to give him too much space, but they don't want to bite too much, and so it leaves them a little bit indecisive, and that's why I think he's able to get his hips around the ball, get that shot on frame, and get into the back of the net.
So I've got a sort of probably controversial take. I was not that impressed with Obobase in this game, except for this one incredible moment. And I'm not sure how that leaves me feeling very confused.
Well, why weren't you impressed?
I thought a lot of balls didn't stick to him. He was the target man and would take a couple of touches and lose it. You know what I mean? Or his touch. Weirdly, his touch didn't look quite good enough sometimes. And then there's this moment of genius where he looks like he's got the best touch in the world. So it leaves me kind of confused with what to think.
I mean, it leaves me thinking that they played a 4-4-2 and that maybe he wasn't so used to being the target hold-up player, the one who had to... Because sometimes he would drop and it would be Josh Sargent further forward. Sometimes it would be Josh Sargent dropping.
It was nice that they switched it around a little bit.
And I think we saw... I almost said Claudio Reyna. Tab Ramos... a couple times gesturing, I think, to the two of them to stay compact, to stay together.
Yeah.
So I think
to work off of each other,
with that Sargent header. Yeah. And so I think they didn't do a very good job of that, neither one. Yeah. So I think that's why Josh Sargent a couple times did a good job of holding up, but we also saw him lose the ball in the same way.
True.
So I think they, as a tandem, didn't really help each other.
There's an element of Obobase probably expected to be the U20 striker.
I would say so.
And then Josh Sargent was just called up from the U17s and essentially took his spot. Right? We were surprised that Sargent just started ahead of him from the get-go in this tournament.
I mean, I was surprised that he got called up, he being Sargent, got called up to the U20s in the first place, since he is 17.
Yep. And we thought maybe just for experience, right? Maybe coming off the bench.
But instead he's starting and getting goals. Joint top scorer at the moment.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Of course he is, yeah, 4 goals.
Yep.
Okay, so third goal. The third goal is Brooks Lennon,
yep.
and it happens almost immediately after the second goal. That's why I say that New Zealand are broken.
I mean, it pretty much is. Like, New Zealand make a substitute, and the goal happens 1 minute after after Ebobise's goal.
It was,
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's... Who plays the ball? Is it Eric Williamson?
Eric Williamson with a beautiful chipped ball just over the back of the New Zealand defence. Brooks Lennon running in, I think, just outside of the left back, and then just finishes from an angle.
Yep.
It looked too easy.
I mean, it was a very smart finish. You can see on the replays that Brooks Lennon absolutely picks his spot. It's exact, like perfect side netting.
Far post inside,
but just barely tings the post into the side netting. Knows exactly where he has to put it to score. So it's really well done there. It's a great ball from Eric Williamson.
Oh, excuse me.
And you're excused. And I want to say, though, it's a man who we haven't talked about much, mostly because he was in the center of defense and thus didn't have much to do for the USA. It all starts with an Eric Palmer-Brown one header. Because basically New Zealand boot the ball long. They're looking to try to, I guess, jumpstart that offense. Eric Palmer-Brown wins the header. It goes to Eric Williamson, who settles it, and then chips it over the top.
And that's a perfect through the middle all the way for the US. All right, then Justin Glad scores the fourth goal with a head. It's a good old-fashioned header.
Yep.
I want to think. You said this. They've been landing this ball in this exact spot from most corners.
I mean, they've been looking to the middle, either driven, as you talked about earlier, or lofted into that general vicinity. Yeah.
A lot of big guys on the US team. It made me think, right? Because you got the 2 centre backs. Then Justin Glad is a centre back playing right back.
Yep.
Didn't look 100% comfortable.
No, I mean, as you said, I think multiple times, you're always protective of your center backs, but I guess as soon as they go to right back, you're no longer protective.
Yeah.
Because you didn't seem as impressed with his ability to kind of play out of pressure, hold the ball, and get forward the way you want your right back to.
His crossing he looked like a centre back trying to cross from right back.
But he also looked like a center back when scoring. So
yes, he did. Yeah, he did.
Smashing a header in there, sort of. Hits off the goalkeeper Wood, right? But with a U, which is kind of confusing.
Yeah.
And then slowly the ball spins into the net because that's just how much power he got behind it.
And then fifth goal, speaking of centre-backs playing full-back, Austin Trusty, who I'm sure is a centre-back for Philadelphia Union and previously for Bethlehem Steel, comes on for Danilo Costa, who I think just deserves a break after a lot of hard work. Plays left-back, but essentially plays like the American Marcelo. Because he just, I think his first touch is to charge into the box, do a step over, and then just get tackled before he scores.
Yep.
Not long after that, he charges into the box and hits a belter of a shot. More Roberto Carlos than Marcelo.
I think that step over led to a corner, which led to the goal. I'm pretty sure.
Incredible performance from Austin Trusty.
But I think that's why, for me, that was the goal of the match, because I think both his goal and Ebobise's goal were both very, very pretty goals. They're struck from distance with a good bit of skill, but also a good bit of technical finishing. But I think in the same way that if the Golden Boot is tied, it goes to assists for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm going to say in this one, you look at the duration of the game and the fact that Austin Trusty comes in, has that immediate impact, looks lively, goes at people, looks like he absolutely belongs there, and then he scores that goal. That's why it's just a little bit better for me than Ebobisse having a few moments of inconsistency and losing the ball, but then he gets a goal.
But Ebobise's goal is what broke the match in half, right? It's essentially won it for the US. Austin Trusty's goal is the 5th in a 6-0 win.
Yeah.
He celebrates with 3 dabs. He hyper celebrated it.
Might have been 4, and then I think he might have done one after everybody hugged him. So maybe up to 6 dabs.
I want to say, if you're just because we're sort of getting into this U20 team now, right?
Yep.
Seeing Danilo Acosta, Danny Acosta, on the bench celebrating that step over and shot from Trusty that led to the corner. Super excited for the other possible left back.
Yeah, I think he's pretty content in his position, and I think once
he knows there's no
once
threat.
you have that confidence, you can cheer on your teammates.
Do you think maybe he's less confident after that goal?
No, I think Danilo Acosta will be that left back.
All right, 6th and final goal, Lagos Kunga. This is the goal where New Zealand really had given up, right? There was a player down.
We referenced it earlier. The Austin Trusty one is the one where he runs. He starts about 25, 30 yards from goal, and it is from a corner. I think it's Luca De La Torre kind of jogs over, and it's Salcedo who subbed in. It takes the corner, and he kind of points behind him, play it into the space.
Into that massive hole.
And that's where Austin Trusty is. That's where he hits that ball. And this is the one where the player was kind of half pointing, hey, someone should get him, even though that player who was pointing was supposed to be the one doing it.
Me.
Yeah, exactly.
Never mind, we'll just take kickoff.
So that's probably where it's kind of in the stop, they're already dead mode, and then this one really kills it.
Yeah, so the 6-1, there's a guy on the floor. I think the referee maybe should have stopped it because it was a head injury. The US play on because no one's told them to stop. And it ends up with Kunga and De La Torre. They have a quick 1-2 that ends with Lagos Kunga just between two centre-backs with time to pick his spot and roll it past Wood once
Yeah, I mean, it's a good finish, and like he does get it with his back to goal and has to turn. Doesn't know how much time he has, doesn't know where the keeper is. I mean, so
it's a big moment for him as well, but I think I kind of want to underplay it because it really did seem like New Zealand are just like, oh, sure, have another one.
I mean, that was one where I think there were 5 defenders inside the box and it was 2 attackers, and yet the 2 attackers still managed to keep possession and really kind of shred those 5.
Yeah, the commentator said it was like a 5v2, you know, the Rondo type game in reverse.
Yep, and he was correct because that's exactly what it was.
Okay, so the US moves on. They will play Venezuela on Saturday night / Sunday morning, depending on how you look at it. Officially Sunday, 2 a.m. in the quarter-finals.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tougher game because we went back and took a look at Venezuela and we found the statistics are not as scary as they first appear. Because officially, if you look at it, they've scored 11 goals in this tournament, conceded 0, beaten Germany and Mexico, and all that looks terrifying. But then you realise that 7 of those goals came against Vanuatu, who I did not know existed until Vanuatu. Sorry, apologies. I didn't even know they were in the tournament until just now.
Yep.
And Germany really sent like a not first choice U20 roster, right?
Yeah.
But we had a good look at the Venezuela team to figure out sort of where the threats are and where we have to look.
Right.
Where would you start, Taylor? If you were like, if Tab Ramos said, hey, I overslept, I forgot to look at Venezuela, the game starts in an hour, who should I be on the lookout for? Apart from the obvious worries you would have about Tab Ramos, what would you tell him?
I mean, I think the obvious answer, I mentioned that Josh Sargent is joint top scorer. I think I forget, there's a French player, it's not Alain Saint-Maximin, but there's somebody else who has 4 goals. Josh Sargent has 4 goals.
Okay.
And then Cordova. Cordova for Venezuela, he's going to be like the right-sided attacking midfielder. Sergio Cordova is his name. Yep. He is the 3rd player with 4 goals in this tournament. So
big-ish guy wearing number 19, I believe. Yeah, and we took a look at his goal I think it was against Mexico, right, where he cut inside from the right, and essentially it looks like he popped up in a centre-forward type position, and then it looks like an accident, but then the more you watch it, it looks like he's pulled off something very clever to score this goal.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with a really good run in behind. So he basically splits the defense, gets the through ball, then uses that like same sort of like hip check that we talked about with Tyler Adams to body off the defender. Then he cuts it past the goalkeeper. There's a defender rushing to cover the goal, and Cordova basically picks his spot, hits it left-footed, and then passes it like behind that defender and into the side netting. And it's like insultingly slow how long it takes to get across the line.
So Cordova's definitely be someone to keep an eye on, especially up against Danilo Acosta, our left back, who is going to be, he's always like smart at getting forward and seems to have a lot of sort of physical weapons to get back, right? As in he's fast and he's strong and he'll win a tackle if he gets a chance to do it. But there is a chance that he drifts and suddenly we're in trouble with Cordova getting in behind. Yep. Not least because behind him there is the right back, number 20, Ronald Hernandez, loves to get forward to the point where we're sure they play a back 4, Venezuela, but it often looks like a back 3 because he is just bombing forward.
And sometimes goes really central and a centre back has to slide out to cover for him. Yeah, so that's definitely...
He's like a freelance right back.
Yeah, sure. In the sense that it's an area of like potential weakness for the United States, and that you could get those numbers pushed forward and it could cause some overloads, but it could also present some vulnerabilities for Venezuela's defense in that then there's a huge gap into which players like Josh Sargent or Abobase or whomever else can run.
It worries me, though, that Brooks Lennon will have to do a bit more defensive work.
He looked fine in this one.
Yeah.
You never know.
Oh, no, sorry, I got my side wrong, right? He'll be on the right, so he'll be worried about
It'll be Luca Della Torre.
It'll be Luca Della Torre. That's not so bad then. All right, I'm feeling better. About
my larger concern would be between Cordova and Peña. Ronaldo, I believe, Peña, who starts up top. He's number 9. He's their big guy. He's their hold-up striker. When they do look to go long, they go to him. He knocks it down. Then he runs off the ball.
Yeah.
You've got 2 big guys, so they're going to be kind of physical problems both on set pieces and just if the ball is in that attacking third for Venezuela. But also, as we talked about, Cordova is tricky, and he is technical, and you don't want to risk like overcommitting because you think, oh, he's a big guy, he's just going to shoot, and then he does a nice little cut. Suddenly he has open space, or even worse, you concede a penalty and maybe put yourself down a man.
So big test for Acosta there. The other guy worth keeping an eye on is the guy that scored the winner against Japan, also plays for New York City FC, Yangel Herrera. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, but Yangel Herrera, he'll be number 8. I believe he also wears the armband for the Venezuela U20s.
And why do we want to keep an eye on him?
Well, first of all, he scored the winner, defensive midfielder who can get forward and bang a header in. But he just seems like someone who's going to sort of dominate midfield in that way. That may be a problem for Adams and Williamson and I assume Derek Jones will be back. There's no reason to think otherwise.
I would assume he will be, yes. So Venezuela are going to come out, we assume, in a 4-2-3-1. That's what they've been doing in this tournament. We know the coach. We know the coach, and I think some of the team were there watching this U.S. game. I don't know what he'll get out of it.
I saw some notes being taken.
But I'm not sure what he'll get out of it, because I don't think the U.S. will continue in a 4-4-2 once they get those players back from suspension.
That is true.
So maybe he learns some things, but I think the United States would do well to kind of come out in that 4-3-3, 4-5-1, however you want to look at it, because I think you need those numbers in the middle to make sure you're tracking those, both Herrera and I think Lucena coming through,
the other guy,
like those kind of late arrival runs through the middle, so you want to make sure you have numbers central to deal with that.
One more guy we have to keep an eye on is the left winger. I think he's the one that chipped that ball over the top for Cordova.
Peñaranda.
That was it. I couldn't remember his name. He had the bleach blonde hair.
He does.
You'll know him when you see him.
He's kind of got the, what's that called? Like the pompadour? It's not quite a mohawk, but it's not like anything else. It's just a big bleach blonde thing. Yes.
So that's going to be a test for the returning Aaron Herrera, right? Who you talked about with Will Parchman, who's been sort of thrown into this tournament at the last minute and still looks a little confused.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, so that game once again is Sunday, 2 a.m. It's going to be, right now it's listed on Fox Sports 2, but keep an eye on that because they may shift it to Fox Sports 1.
Don't tell me what to do. All right, fine, I'll keep an eye on it.
I never would, Taylor. I never would.
Do you think, I want to hit this at the very, very end. We did see that, so you had the 3 U.S. players suspended, CCV, Derek Jones we already talked about, and Aaron Herrera.
Yeah.
I am curious. We saw CCV talking to Herrera a lot in that game. I wonder if he was sort of like instructing him what to be doing, like if it was like coaching session. So maybe he'll be a little bit sharper for Venezuela.
You think he's had like a CCV coaching session?
Sure. Why not?
That's interesting.
Yep.
Oh, so one of the things I want to talk about with this U20 team, we've had a few people ask us on Twitter, like, when do we see these players for the senior national team?
It'll be a while, I think.
That's what I think too. I think it's worth remembering that this is a U20 team. Like, they're pretty far behind, right? And anyone who's like massively ahead of the curve, like Christian Pulisic, they're already with the senior team. So, there's going to be there might be some experimentation with the Gold Cup in July, but you're not going to call up guys who just played in a whole tournament.
You're not
to go in the Gold Cup, right? So don't expect to see them there. And then we've got World Cup qualifiers going to be too important. Arena's going to lean on experience, so don't expect to see them there. So it's some way off before, say, Brooks Lennon or Tyler Adams, I think, are in the full national team.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that's because we talked about this a little bit off air, but I'd say the areas in which the United States has like a decent amount of weakness right now would be the senior national team would be maybe at fullback, maybe at goalkeeper. You want to get some fresh blood in there. I don't know if Jonathan Klinsmann is ready for that. I don't think he is. And then obviously we've talked about on several occasions fullback being a problem for this U20 team.
Yeah, I mean, Acosta's a midfielder who's playing there right now.
Exactly.
And Herrera is not the first choice. Yeah.
No, he's not. Marlon Fossey, who himself is only 18. So that's not really going to do it either. So then you move to midfield and maybe Tyler Adams, but I still think he's like maybe the closest one aside from CCV. And again, you've got center back depth there. So I think the issue is just that you have so much depth at the positions where the U20s have depth that it will be some time before I think they can supplant anybody or anybody kind of drops down in the pecking order.
And Josh Sargent the same, right? We already have Clint Dempsey, Jordan Morris, Josie Altidore, Bobby Wood. There's no point throwing Josh Sargent into that mix just yet when you've still got, like, Bobby Wood hasn't fully established himself as a starter. Jordan Morris is still knocking at the door. I almost want to say to people, get excited about the current young generation that's in the team, like Kellen Acosta. Get excited about Kellen Acosta starting for the US national team before you get excited about Tyler Adams. There will be time, and time will come. You just got to be patient. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. Today's sponsor, Taylor, is X1 Fuel, the pre- and post-workout formula for athletes who expect more from their workouts and on-field performance without sacrificing their long-term health.
You're also not sacrificing like whatever's going on inside you because you got no chemical ingredients, no fillers, no excess sugars. That means no crash. That means no big up and down in terms of your level of energy. It's steady and it's helpful energy at that.
And it's all natural products, no artificial sweeteners, caffeine and gluten, 70% less sugar than Gatorade.
The pre-training ignition formula gives you an excellent blend of superfoods and antioxidants without any of the ups and downs, as I mentioned. The post-training recovery formula combines proteins and superfoods to help restore energy, build muscle, and promote wellness.
And I do know that the founder of the company, he came up with this because his kid was playing soccer and wanted to have something that was healthier for his kid to play soccer with. So that's why it's student athlete tested, parent approved.
Very nice.
That's the idea.
It's also Total Soccer Show approved. We've both taken it. We both enjoyed it. Taking it sounds so official.
Yeah.
We both drank the thing out of the shaker thingy. Yeah. And it was delicious.
We've shaken it.
And if people want to try it for themselves, what can they do, Daryl Grove?
Okay, so we have a special offer until June 5th. This expires the end of day, June 5th. If you go to x1fuel.com and you use the code TOTALSOCCER15 at checkout, you will save $15 off every shipment of the Performance Bundle, which is the pre-workout and the post-workout, and a shaker, and I believe a T-shirt.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So $15 off that whole package using the code TOTALSOCCER15 at x1fuel.com. We will put the link in the show notes so you can find it easily.
Lovely. Thank you to X1 Fuel for sponsoring today's show. Thank you to Christos FC for keeping hope alive.
So yeah, you may remember we covered Christos FC beating the Richmond Kickers of the USL in the second round of the US Open Cup. Christos FC are an amateur team out of Baltimore.
Yep.
Some guys who played a little bit USL here and there, but right now they're all amateur, all living in Baltimore. You heard in our interview with Pete Karingi, the striker, they're all essentially friends who played a bit of college together, played some like youth soccer together growing up, and now they're all on this amateur team. Well, last night they played Chicago FC United,
You got it.
which is a U23 PDL team.
And apparently they're somehow somewhat affiliated with FC United of Manchester.
Is that right?
Somehow.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't really know. I don't know the specifics, but there you go.
Like a sister team?
Sure.
Yeah. So Christos FC won 1-0. The goal was from Hoapeu, who we got a good look at, right? Ivorian winger / striker. We saw him in the Richmond Kickers game. He looked really tricky, really tricky. We did not see his goal because, unfortunately, the US Open Cup stream started 5 minutes in. Christos were already 1-0 up.
Not ideal, but ideal for Christos FC.
Ideal for Christos, yeah.
I have some resentment towards Christos, though, because they have turned me into a straight-up soccer hipster. Because I saw all of these different outlets and Twitter accounts talking about like the majesty of the cup and like, isn't this great? And like, here's a team you probably haven't heard of doing things in the US Open Cup. And I was like, where were you guys when we talked about this like 2 weeks ago?
We
like,
interviewed
come on
them 2
now.
weeks ago.
Yeah, come on.
So if you want to hear about...
We like their first album before they got all commercial.
So if you want to hear from Christos FC striker Pete Karingi about the win over the Kickers and the preparations for FC United and for DC United, go back, a couple of weeks to their first album. we interview Karingi at work as the team are preparing.
I didn't realize it was at work. That's awesome.
He works for University of Maryland, Baltimore County. So he's like, I think, an assistant head coach there. Okay. So he works in soccer. Right?
Gotcha.
But he's not a professional player.
It wasn't him like teaching a class and then he was just like, read from the book while I talk on the phone for 20 minutes.
Everybody watch this movie.
Yeah.
Karingi talks about that. So they will play DC United. What was the date? June 12th, I believe?
I believe that is correct.
June 12th, they'll play DC United at RFK Stadium. Christos FC, the amateur team, also get a prize of $15,000 from US Soccer for being the amateur team that went furthest in the Open Cup, and it's not over yet.
No prize for us, though, because it's actually June 13th.
June 13th.
Apologies. June 13th at 7:30 p.m.
And because they're a Baltimore team, it's going to be easy to get their fans, friends, family to RFK
Regional
to watch
rivalry.
them take on DC United. Could be a new rivalry. The way DC are going, this maybe is more their level.
Ouch. Ouch.
I saw that goal that Orlando scored past Bill Hamid.
Anyway, final segment on today's show.
Did you see that goal?
The Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 reports. Thank you to everyone who sent in those reports. Up first, David Holtengren. I'm not stopping. David Holtengren, why don't you take that one, Daryl, since I've been talking for a moment?
Okay, David Holtengren is scouting Enes Ünal, the 20-year-old Turkish striker for Villarreal. After scoring 18 goals for FC20 in the Eredivisie, Ünal has permanently moved to Villarreal for roughly £12 million. The deal reportedly was motivated by the fact that Ünal would not qualify for an English work permit currently. I guess not enough appearances for the Turkish national team, but does contain a buyback option in the region of £17 million. I'll bet he could score past Bill Hamid.
Yeah. It took me a minute. Yes, absolutely. He probably could. Up next, Dylan Veach scouting Kai Havertz, 17-year-old German midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. Havertz made 24 Bundesliga appearances this season and scored 4 goals, 2 of which came before halftime in Leverkusen's 6-2 destruction of Hertha Berlin on the final day of the season. All of that is not too bad for a 17-year-old. For these and other efforts, Havertz was included as number 17 on Planet Football's list of top 20 under-20 players in world soccer. Again, not too bad, considering he had to miss multiple games, including a Champions League match, due to having school exams. That's how young he is.
I like he's not pulling all his eggs in the soccer basket.
Yeah.
All right, Orion Lehochi Escobar is scouting Tommy Thompson, the 21-year-old American attacker for San Jose.
I knew this one was coming here. That's why I had you read the Unasana one first, so you'd get to talk about Tommy Thompson.
You're like a chess grandmaster thinking multiple moves ahead.
Sure.
Orion says, Thompson got another start for the Earthquakes last weekend, provided a lovely assist, his second in 3 games. Overall, he looked good, and as one Redditor noted, if that's the floor, then we should keep playing him because the ceiling could be really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Now, Daryl, I know you were incredibly impressed by this assist.
Yeah, well, you know I'm on the Tommy Thompson hype train, just waiting. We've been pouring coal into it for, it feels like years, so we're just waiting for this thing to start moving forward.
Can you flood a coal engine? Because if so, I feel like you've done that at this point. Yeah, but I know you were impressed by this. So too was Matt Doyle. I watched his little video where he kind of broke down why it was a good assist.
Okay, so think of it this way. Matt Doyle posted the old clip of Tommy Thompson, I think playing for San Jose against Seattle. This would be 2 or 3 years ago, where he sort of takes the ball on his chest in the area and does like a freestyle football, like spin around and like pops it up and moves it around. But he basically ends up going nowhere. He just ends up
dropping it back.
Yeah, dropping it back, which he could have done first time and probably in less traffic, right? So it really was like a nice trick, but a pointless trick, right? So Matt Doyle was making the point that when you watch this assist for San Jose, I can't remember who scores it, I'm sorry. It wasn't Chris Wondolowski, it was someone else. He essentially uses his skills to like spot a bit of space, use a couple of moves to open it up, get to the end line, and then pick out a teammate for the goal. So that's why it's a proper assist. I also know they said second assist, Orion said second assist. His first assist was pretty much a mishit shot that someone else scored off of. So I'm claiming this as his first real MLS assist. Tommy Thompson on the board.
All right, there we are. Yeah, I think Matt Doyle ends his video with the hype train has left the station.
Is that right?
Yeah,
full of coal.
If you have a hype train, it has to have left the station as soon as there is a hype train. That's my feeling on this.
Well, this was the weird thing.
You can't have a hype train in idle. Then is no longer a hype train.
That's what was happening, but passengers kept boarding and boarding and boarding.
But see, do you understand how I'm talking about, like, from a metaphor standpoint?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Like, you can't have a hype train like, yay, excitement, enthusiasm, we're sitting here in neutral waiting to go. Like, that's
what it was.
No, the hype train has got to be speeding.
That's the Tommy Thompson experience.
Well, then there's no hype. You're just,
well, there is now.
You're just a broke down train.
We're in first gear at least.
All right.
Do trains have gears? Let's say yes.
Sure. Why not? Final report comes from Scotty Ellie, excuse me. Either way, scouting Rachel Daly, the 25-year-old English forward for the Houston Dash, and Leah Galton, the 23-year-old English forward for Sky Blue FC. Daly has played every minute of every game for Houston so far this season, and that's still the case even though she collapsed at the end of last week's game against Seattle due to heat exhaustion.
Yeah, wasn't that a big deal in like Lifetime with thinking about maybe not screening games at 3 p.m. and like not having kickoffs at 3 p.m. because it's real hot and it's only going to get hotter.
It is. I think so. This one happened in like the 95th minute and 30 seconds. I think there were 5 minutes of injury time, so the official called the game there. But yes, it has made Lifetime potentially, possibly, maybe reevaluate when they're going to screen games. On another note, Galton has played in all 8 of Sky Blue's games this season and was a nominee for Goal of the Week, though that was largely due to the excellent no-look through ball she received from Sam Kerr.
Shout out for no-look through balls.
In news that pertains to both players, the England team for the Euros this summer has been announced, and it only features women playing in England. So none of the 7 English women in the NWSL will be taking a break from their respective club teams to compete in the tournament later this summer.
Isn't this is a weird thing with women's international football? Is there still a lot of moments where you don't get looks unless you're playing at home?
Yeah. It seems that way.
Like, even Lindsay Horan seemed to get fewer looks when she was at PSG, and it didn't seem quite fair.
No, and I think that's been... Like, as I recall, it's been a while since we talked about these types of issues, but I do think that there was some speculation that maybe that was intentional, that it was an intentional thing to force players to come to NWSL.
Not cool, though, right?
Maybe the FA are doing the same thing, trying to get more English players back into the English league.
Also not cool, right? I know. They're against freedom of movement in the UK right now, but this is not.
I mean, if you're trying to build up your domestic league, I can see why you would do it. If you want the players that you think will bring in crowds, if you think that having your best players playing in your league will help promote that league, then I can see why you would do that. I mean, it's definitely not like fair trade and free movement of player, but, I think it would be a little bit hypocritical of us to criticize that and yet continue to praise Major League Soccer when they've done plenty of their own sort of like, wait, how did that work? How did he get to play there?
MLS do it just by throwing money at people. Like Clint Dempsey, how much are we getting paid at Tottenham? We'll triple it.
Yeah, but then also like suddenly Seattle get his rights? Like there's a couple of those little like, wait a minute, hold on, what now? How is this happening?
Well, thank you to Nate, David, Dylan, Orion and Scott for all the scouting reports on today's show. If you'd like to join the TSS Scouting Network, you go to totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. You can be a scout where we'll assign you a player, or you can be a silent scout, which is where you just support the show, but you don't have to do any of the scouting work if you don't want to. I've had a few people email with itchy feet this week asking for their players to be assigned. I will get on it. I'm really crushed with work right now, but I promise I will get to it over the weekend.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Speaking of over the weekend, I'm gonna be flying out of town.
You are. You're going to be gone You're going to be gone for how long?
It's just over between 2 and 3 weeks. I'm going to go back to England and then with a brief family trip to Ibiza in the middle. Yeah.
But we will still be putting out content, maybe not 5 days a week, but you'll still be on some shows, and then I'll be filling in the silences with the voices of other people.
There'll be no silent shows.
No, I don't think so. We could go avant-garde. Yeah.
So we are going to slow it down a little bit because there's less soccer going on. It's the summer, but obviously our focus for the next week or two is going to be the US national teams, right? U20.
Yep.
There's the friendly against Venezuela this weekend for the senior team, and then there's Trinidad, and then there's Mexico. Yeah, so there'll be Total Soccer Show, just not guaranteed 5 days a week.
There we are.
What's our next show, Taylor, coming out after today?
Our next show is going to be a Champions League preview and a quick look at the USA-Venezuela at senior level, that friendly that leads into those 2 World Cup qualifiers.
So if you're getting this show on Thursday, this show that you're listening to right now, you can expect that Champions League show not long after, because we're going to record that show sort of late this afternoon, early this evening. Get that Champions League preview out there so everybody can hear it ahead of the game.
Indeed.
Anything else to add before I do the usual thing where I thank you for taking the time to talk to me today?
Nope, that's about it.
Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again very soon.